A lot of concerns by parents in Northern Virginia about the state of the schools. What if you found out that your kids had a teacher who was trying to sell the students on how great Hamas is? That might be the situation we're dealing with in Virginia. The Daily Wire has a piece today. Virginia teacher who makes kids criticize Israel is daughter of imam at an Al-Qaeda-linked mosque. Well, that sounds great. Great family. What the heck is this? Luke Rosiak is an investigative reporter for the Daily Wire, also the author of the book Race to the Bottom, Uncovering the Secret Forces Destroying American Public Education. He's writing on this story today. Luke, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Okay, this takes us to Arlington, Virginia. Surprise, surprise. Tell us what is happening in Arlington, Virginia schools.
Well, there's a teacher named Shema Al-Hanoudi, who's an English teacher at Washington Liberty High School. And parents have been concerned for a while now that she's not really teaching English in English class. She's focusing on, Israel and Palestine. And so the group Parents Defending Education did a Freedom of Information Act request that got back quite a number of documents raising concerns about whether this teacher is injecting her own radical political views into various elements of education there in Arlington, including assigning students to watch movies about Gaza and then write down how does Israel use the Holocaust to victimize themselves, and to describe why Israel's arguments that it's not committing genocide are logical fallacies.
So she's trying to engender animus among the students towards Israel inside of an Arlington classroom, according to this.
Yeah, and the emails show the principal actually doing a pretty good job being like, we don't really see what connection these assignments have to the English language the standards that you're supposed to be teaching to. And she says, well, I have the kids watch the movie about Palestine and then write down what it made them think. So it's kind of a minimal attempt to connect it to English after the fact, but she's basically forcing them to say why Israel commits a genocide, basically stating as a fact that
Yes.
Israel is committing genocide, and then elaborate on that in English class.
So I think everyone should be measured on their own merits. Sometimes we're related to people or we know people who turn out not to be great, but it does inform you a bit what her upbringing was once you learn who her family is. Tell us about her family, who she is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's most Muslims out there in the world are totally normal people, and they're like any of us. They're not super well connected to like a who's who of like the most extreme figures. But that's not who this person is. Her father was the imam at Dar al-Hijra Mosque in Falls Church, which was attended by 9/11 hijackers, the Fort Hood shooter. One of its teachers was an Al-Qaeda operative convicted of trying to kill George Bush. Another was Anwar al-Awlaki, who was an Al-Qaeda terrorist killed by drone strike on the orders of Barack Obama. Her father, Sheikh Mohammed al-Hanoudi, was also an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing plot and the 2008 Hamas fundraising trial, and an FBI memo said he raised $6 million for Hamas. Her brother was sentenced to prison after being charged with secretly working for Saddam Hussein. And so when Mrs. Shema Al-Hanoudi is using the all-staff listserv at Washington Liberty High School to lecture teachers that as teachers they have to condemn Israel's genocide, and she's emailing teachers telling them to donate to certain groups which are actually connected to Hamas, it's kind of like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I'm just curious. Do Arlington schools do background checks before they hire teachers? I feel like 1,000 red flags might exist in this woman's background based on what you just described.
I don't know the answer to that. I know that she was certainly on the radar of the principal. She was quite insubordinate to him in the emails. He actually did a good job. Principal Tony Hall and the vice principal there as well were clearly quite concerned by this woman, and they tried to be good leaders and mentors and be kind, but to kind of get her back on track. And her responses were, really insubordinate, and they asked her to meet with her about these issues at one point, and she just refused. And she's also, she emailed the whole school board and the superintendent demanding that they put out some statement, condemning Israel, which is Israel. And you see her principal saying kind of what I think anyone would say, like, I'm a suburban principal of a high school. Like, I don't control world affairs. I don't know why the Arlington school system would have a position on international relations.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, this isn't a peripheral issue for her. This is kind of her one animating thing that
Well,
permeates seemingly everything she does. And I saw a student saying, they took their class, and that's what it was. It wasn't English. It was Palestine class.
right.
And you look at her Facebook page, every post is about this, including promoting the action at the Watergate Hotel, where they put maggots into the hotel because the Prime Minister of Israel was visiting.
That's right. The Israeli coalition was staying at the Watergate, and there were maggots dumped all over the dining tables there by pro-Hamas activists. So in your reporting, you also point out that that this teacher apparently got into it with her supervisors, her superiors at the school, because some of the students wanted to chant anti-Semitic slogans, and the school said, "You're not going to do that."
Yeah, and basically the principal said, what you're repeating is just false information. Like, your kids lied to you. They weren't stopped from doing whatever. And she's, it's basically saying that they were stopped from saying from the river to the sea. And who are you as an assistant principal to say that from the river to the sea is anti-Israel? Which, by the way, from the river to the sea clearly is anti-Israel. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. The whole point is Israel
really
won't be there if our goal is fulfilled. Yes.
So they say, look, we want to support students in any way we can. That this is the principal or assistant principal saying we want every kid to feel seen, heard, and supported. Let's meet to help how we can figure that out. She says, respectfully, I'm not interested in meeting. So she's basically, if you don't go along with her 100%, she's just going to shut you out, even if you're her supervisor. Another, she abused the all-staff listserv to kind of push Hamas propaganda, like the idea that Israel was bombing hospitals. Another teacher wrote back and said, well, that's just a made-up thing. And she says, well, even if it was, what does that matter? And the teacher's like, well, the fact that it's false, as an English teacher, probably promoting propaganda is bad. And she said, look, well, if you're not opposed to settler colonialist ideology, then just don't talk at all. This is, I think they got a lot of, like, poor black kids at this school, and she's teaching them, like, you look at her Facebook page, it's like Palestinians support the Black Intifada. And she's saying a lot of stuff about how, our country was founded on what we're seeing now in Israel is the late stages of violent settler colonialism. And we know that because that's how our country was founded. So she's trying to latch on to these anti-American ideas to connect it with their students and then get them to kind of push this really radical ideology that her whole family has been pushing in a very organized way from the highest ranks for quite a few years.
Do you get the impression that there's like some sort of red line she could actually cross and get fired? Like, what does it take? What does it take to get canned in Arlington schools? How much is Holocaust denial enough? Is saying that America and Israel are both evil and Israel's following the same track as America? What does it take?
Yeah, that's a good question. And even just the personal affront of attacking your superiors, her principal, and then the superintendent, Francisco Duran. She's very angry at him for not somehow using his status as a suburban principal to condemn Israel, as odd as that would be.
Yeah.
But I saw a story in Arlington Now today where she claims that she got a threat and called the police after the story went up. So, right now they, I guess, removed her from the website, but it's like to protect her because she says she's received, and you never know. Maybe it's real, maybe it's fake, maybe it's some criticism that she's interpreting to be a threat when it's really just a parent being angry.
Well, this is easy. This, of course, is easy to resolve. There would be no ill will towards her or any criticism of her if she would just explain herself and let the rest of us know that there's some perfectly good explanation for all of this. What did she tell you when you reached out to her for comments so she could make her voice a part of this symphony?
She didn't say anything, and now she's got the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, put out a press release today, like within minutes of the supposed threat that she got by email, which kind of underscores, by the way, if you're just a normal Muslim person, CARE isn't waiting to spring into action with the press release. Her whole family is deeply involved at the highest levels of these very, very formal, very extreme groups, some of which do have, documented evidence connecting them to Hamas and groups like that. So the fact that CARE is springing into action and alleging that, of course, she's the victim and being discriminated against, I think is further evidence that this is not just a normal teacher that happens to be Muslim. This is a woman who's
I just want to make sure I understand this because I think you alluded to it, but I want to be really specific. You said that her father was an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trials, which is a Hamas financing trial. Wasn't Kerr also an unindicted co-conspirator in the very same trial?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of connections here. She's not really proving her case by being like, actually, I'm just a normal teacher. By the way, I'm on, I've got CARE's executive director on speed dial.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering. This seems
But
kind of
anyway,
crazy.
yeah.
And the parents
Seems,
must not be thrilled with any of this.
No, and I mean Arlington Public Schools didn't say anything at all to me when I asked for comment, even though I sent them what I had. I'm always upfront with people, and I said, look, here's the exact documents that I have. What's the deal? Obviously, the principal did express concerns that she was using the curriculum to push her own personal views. Do you have any response? And they didn't even acknowledge receipt. Same with her. But then now they're saying she's a victim of the threat or whatever. So I think, the Arlington Now story that's talking about the supposed threat said that Arlington Public Schools have been aware of this for quite a while. They've had meetings with parents who are up in arms. So they've certainly known about this. And I guess, I think your question of a red line is a good one. Like, how much is too much when it comes to using your taxpayer-funded position to push your views on kids? And it also, these documents show that she was putting together this panel that was supposed to be on the Palestine-Israel issues, and the Middle East Muslim expert that was the first panelist said, well, we've got to get like a Jew or an Israel person to balance out this panel. And she said, no, we don't want balance. We need it to be all anti-Israel, and if we have to have a Jew, it should be an anti-Israel Jew.
I just maybe I'm a fool for thinking English class is supposed to be about reading Macbeth or something, like working on your vocab words. Instead, you've got people being trained to sympathize with Hamas. So it just strikes me that this is kind of a scandal going on in Arlington, and I'm glad you're covering it. Luke Rosiak over at the Daily Wire. Sir, thank you as always for digging in.